In this exercise, I'm going to show you how to create and manage swatches, which allow you to establish a color theme, stick with that color theme, and automate the application of colors to your artwork. I've gone ahead and saved my changes as the Godface.ai found inside the 07 Fill Stroke folder. And I'm going to scroll over here to the right-hand side of my illustration. Notice that grayish green inside of that larger square shape. Let's say I want to turn that into a swatch so that I can apply it to other objects in my illustration. If I click on the outline of the square using the black arrow tool, then I'll select an entire group of objects, many of which subscribe to different fill and stroke attributes. Hence, we're seeing question marks in the fill and stroke options up here in the control panel. And I could override those fill and stroke options if I wanted to by switching to other swatches, but that's not what I want to do. What I want is to grab that pale green. So I could try to select just that square independently of the others using the white arrow tool, but the easier way to lift a color is to grab this guy right there, the eyedropper. So go ahead and click on the eyedropper tool or press the I key in order to select it, and then click inside of that square. Now, that turns out to have been a mistake. On one hand, it's good because I just lifted the fill and stroke attributes that are associated with that square, but then I turned around and automatically assigned them to the selected group. And that's something that happens when you use the eyedropper or when you're working on swatches in the swatches panel. You end up recoloring selected objects. So a very good first idea is to deselect everything and then go ahead and lift a color or modify a swatch and so on. Anyway, I'm going to press Control-Z, Command-Z on a Mac to undo that modification. And notice now, if I press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on a Mac to deselect everything, that I still have that grayish green selected as my fill color. And if your fill is active in the color panel, you will see C, M, Y, and K values of 30, 10, 40, and 30 respectively. And that's exactly what we want. All right, now let's turn that guy into a swatch. And there's a variety of different ways to work. I'll switch over to the swatches panel. And then I'll switch to the double column toolbox so that I can see the fill and stroke attributes down here at the bottom. I can drag that fill attribute and drop it into the swatches panel like so. Illustrator will automatically name this swatch after its CMYK component. So 30, 10, 40, 30. Notice that it ends in a 1 just to indicate that that's the first swatch with that name. So not the greatest name on earth, but still quite a useful technique. So I'll go ahead and undo that new swatch because I want to show you another way to work. This one's kind of wacky. I'll go ahead and collapse my toolbox once again into the single column toolbox. I'll switch over to the color panel. You can also drag the fill from the color panel into the swatches panel. But problem is, we can't see color and swatches at the same time. Now on your screen, you might be able to, because by default, Adobe has set the color panel and the swatches panel to be in different groups, so that you can easily drag and drop between them. But even if they're in the same group like this, you can still do it. I'll grab that fill swatch, I'll drag it onto that swatches tab, wait for Illustrator to switch over to swatches, and then drag the swatch down into the swatches list and release. All right, so a couple of different ways to perform drag and drops. Perhaps the easiest thing to do, though, I'll go ahead and undo that maneuver as well, is just to click on the new icon. That little page icon down there at the bottom of the swatches panel, and whichever attribute is active, fill or stroke, in my case it's fill, that will become the new swatch color. So click, and now I have the opportunity to name this swatch myself, and I'll go ahead and call it grayish green. And then I have the option of changing the color type if I like. Now notice by default it comes up as process color. You can switch it out to spot color if you want to. A spot color is a pre-mixed ink that's available to your commercial printer. So you may have heard of Pantone colors, for example, which are the industry standard spot colors here in the States. And they allow you to create bright, vivid colors that are otherwise impossible using CMYK inks. However, you have to stick with an industry standard. You can't just make up your own spot color anytime you like. So it's very unlikely that you're going to change the color type to spot color. You're going to stick with process. However, you may want to turn on global. This option is really great, and I suggest when in doubt that you go ahead and turn it on. And what a global color does is it creates a link between the color swatch here inside the swatches panel and the object to which the color is applied here inside the illustration. So if you want to override the colors inside of your illustration. You just go ahead and edit the color swatch, and all linked paths will change in kind. So again, when in doubt, go ahead and turn on global. You can also tweak your color values if you like. You can switch color modes, totally up to you. I'm going to click OK in order to create that new global color swatch. And notice that it has a little triangle in the bottom right-hand corner. So everything with a triangle in the bottom right corner is a global color swatch. All the others are not. So that's just something to bear in mind. And that is how you go about creating a color swatch inside of Illustrator. I'm going to show you how to manage those color swatches, delete and create color swatches en masse in the next exercise.